Ready to go?
Yep.
Thanks, Robin. Kia ora koutou. Welcome everyone to our Policy and Projects Committee meeting this morning. I'll open with a Karakia Timatanga. Mai te pai mona raro ki te tai, mai te awa tonga raro ki te awa raki, tēnei te hapuri, awhi ai e taratahi, whānau, haramai te toki, haumi e hui. Apologies. We have apologies for His Worship the Mayor. And apologies for lateness.
Yeah, grace for lateness, I think.
Good move. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Williams. All in favour? Yes. Conflicts of interest declaration or conflicts of interest. Public forum, like it.
Sorry, just apologies. Are we including?
Oh, gee.
I texted him and I haven't had a response.
No, but I just see that he was here last time. Should we include that?
Yeah, can we include Rafa lateness too? Just
Yeah. Okay.
/ apology.
item 5, confirmation of the minutes. We have a Robin and seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams. All in favour?
Aye.
And that is that they are, the minutes are project are true and correct. Thank you. Okay, item. Now jumping.
No, we're on track.
We're on track. We're going to do those.
Street
You
name.
and I will.
Oh, yeah,
road
yeah.
and street-
Item 6.1. Thank you. Road and street naming policy. Welcome, Sol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is actually a paper that was written by Jerry, but she's tied up this morning as explained.
Busy.
She's busy.
Not tied up.
Pass the test.
As you'll see, we've finally got a really great list of names from Mana Whenua to be included in the schedule and the policy. The intent of the list is that if a developer was to choose a name off that list, it would be great if they also just did go and do some additional consultation with Mana Whenua, but we've got the list here to give them the options. If they were proposing a Māori name or even an English name on the other schedule that is not included on the list, that's when we expect that consultation with the appropriate parties. So if it was a Māori name that they were proposing, we would expect that they go and consult with Mana Whenua about a name that's not on our list. If it was on the other Appendix 1, if it was an English name such as family name, as per the policy, they would need to go and consult with that family whose name that they were proposing. And we also use this opportunity just to make an amendment to the Appendix 3, reflecting that Queen Elizabeth is no longer the reigning monarch.
There needs to be another inclusion on Appendix 3 as well, under former mayors. The name Lang probably needs to be added to that, as Greg Lang was a former mayor.
Were you moving that?
Yes.
I'll second it. In favour of past Mayor Lang being added? Against? Carry.
Presumably with something like that, it'd be a living list. So if the principle was that former mayors were added automatically, then it wouldn't come back, would it not?
It's just while it's on the table.
Yeah, no, but I was thinking going forward.
Leaves an interesting question for a former current mayor. Is that when do they go on the list?
He is on the list.
He's on it as a former mayor.
He's suggesting he has to come off now. As the price of getting re-elected.
He's still being tested. I have a question. On page 15, under approval of delegation, can that be updated Policy and Strategy Committee to Policy and Projects Committee? Is that
Certainly can.
there's
Very good point.
2 or 3
Yeah.
motions in there. we have any other questions? Scott?
One for Solly, on page 11, Tangata Whenua, there's a note there that, other mana whenua who may wish to contribute at a later stage. Is that to be followed up, or is that just inviting them if they want to?
It would be inviting them if they want to. I assume that Te Whakapono would approach that as well, and we can clarify that, but we don't have the report author or the report help here, but we can follow that up and let you know.
We find, for example, Hurunui Arangi would be very interested in naming places, roads in areas where they have an interest. But for example, where we've dealt with Ngāti Karukurawhitia on the wastewater plant, Hurunui Arangi have said we won't have an opinion. This is that Hapu's area. This is that Hapu's rohi. So whatever they say goes. So I think what we were trying to reflect here was, whilst our primary consultation may be with Hurunui Arangi, there will be other interested hapu and parties involved, and they will take priority in some cases.
Yeah, no problems with that at all. I was just thinking that down on a southern boundary, there may be names of significance that probably should or be invited to join the list. That was all.
It's definitely a living list, and
Yeah.
if names proposed, we can just bring it to policy. And policy and projects committee. But I just would like to recognise the amount of work that has gone into this by Jerry and Te Whakapono working with Hurunui Orangi. It's been a long time coming. It's taken us about 3 years to get this list together, and I think it's a really great step forward for Carlton District Council.
Cool. Do we have any further questions to solve? Discussion?
Well done.
I agree. Sol, it's fantastic. We've talked about this a number of times over the last triennium, and when names were brought forward to us and we just had nothing to provide developers, so it's fantastic to have that list. Okay, we have a couple of recommendations. The first one is that we receive the report. We're the mover. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence, and see you.
Mickey Mouse.
All in favour?
Right.
Goes. Carried. And recommendation 2 is that we adopt the updated road and street naming policy in attachment 1.
With the
With-
inclusion.
Yeah, with the
Amendments.
I'm happy to move that.
Second.
Councillor Della, all in favour?
Aye.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. 6.2. Resource consent update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will take the report as read. You will note that it's been quite busy from the last one, looking at the amount of consents. You might have picked up in a few of the consents that it's quite obvious that we're getting developers that are making sure that resource consents are coming in as controlled activities by doing, in my opinion, disappointing things like 20 centimetre wide access strips to trigger it as a rear lot to get around the highly productive land.
I saw that and I thought they'd better bring everything in a wheelbarrow.
It's just the nature of the beast at the moment. And particularly realising that we got that immediate legal effect on the rural subdivision rules, the new plan, which is working. We are definitely not seeing the same number of consents coming in. So it's quite nice coming into Christmas with a little bit of a breather, knowing that we're doing the district plan review. And you'll also note that there are still quite a lot of them where they're getting the decision and amalgamating them to be de-amalgamated at some stage in the future. And that's just property owners that realise the changes were happening, wanted to get the approval for the subdivision, but not necessarily actually wanting to go ahead with it. And I'm happy to take questions on consents if anybody has any.
So the approvals, they look kind of in perpetuity once
Yeah, normally a process with a resource consent is you have 5 years from the date of the decision to give effect to it, which is signing the 223. But if you've included an amalgamation condition, that's on the scheme plan. And so when 223 and 224 get issued, the titles will issue, but there'll be an amalgamation saying that all those titles are held as one.
Right.
And because it's already been approved, then if they want to de-amalgamate them, it's a process of under section 241 or whatever of the Act, they come to us and we de-amalgamate it. And we just make sure that when they de-amalgamate it, that any relevant condition at that stage is done. So if, for example, it was a rural subdivision and if they wanted to de-amalgamate lot 1, they had to provide the upgraded access and the financial contributions. They would have to do the financial contributions and the upgraded access at the de-amalgamation stage.
Right.
So I could clarify, I think Councillor Lawrence's question was, so once you amalgamate, does the 5-year time frame still remain?
It's in perpetuity till they choose to de-amalgamate, if they ever do.
But they could do that in 500 years' time.
Yeah.
Well, possibly. Not personally, but.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they can, we all want their secret.
Just a comment really after sitting through the hearings yesterday where there was comments around, council's rules stymieing growth and things like that, just to suit an argument. But actually, anybody reading these, I hope would see that the rules and the way that you and your team implement the rules is actually to manage an appropriate growth, that we're not actually any growth that's being slowed down by the application of the rules is growth that people don't want to see. And that's the point that I think is missed in.
Or in pre-conversations where people just don't like being told that they need to get a consent for an activity, that they'd just like to be able to
Do what they want.
do what they want. And as we've said to people, we are a progressive council. We want to go into looking at anything saying, how does this work? Not go away. But unfortunately, at times we do have to say, look, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Suggest that you go and do X, Y, and Z before you even consider lodging a consent application. Because if you can't get that support or approval of, for example, Waka Kotahi, you could be spending a lot of money up front on a consent application that's not going to go any further. So we are quite honest with developers of saying, we suggest that you do these steps. If they then choose that they don't want to do those steps, there could be a bigger upfront cost of an application that we wouldn't support. But we do want to support, we want to work, we want to see growth where it's appropriate.
But the Kiwi mindset nowadays is we want to have a say over everybody, but nobody to have a say over us. And you see that with solar farms and quarries and all sorts of things that are topical right now, as people want, they want the freedom to do whatever they want on their piece of paradise, but they don't. But they want to have a say over everything else around them, and it makes very challenging for people to get on and make things happen. And I just appreciate you and your team for guiding people through the regulations to actually see 3 pages of progress. Well done.
And one that I don't think the elected members would have seen before in the reports is the outline plan waiver for Kiwi Rail. It's right at the back. And I just might seem the meeting's going quite quickly, just take the opportunity to talk about what the outline plan waiver is. So Kiwi Rail's rail corridor is designated for railway purposes. So what the designation does is it allows them to do activities on the site without needing a full resource consent. So it's basically a certificate of compliance. So they're doing upgrades to the Carlton railway station, which will assist with their larger project of the rail upgrade. So they come to us and they submit what they call an outline plan, which describes their activity, and then we issue them the certificate to say the outline plan is waived, it's in accordance with the designation. So to have a designation, you have to be a government department or Ministry of Education. So like all the schools in our area have the designations on them. Kiwi Rail Land, State Highway, Telecom and Greater Wellington Regional Council have designations along the rivers for stop banks, which means that they can go in there and do the work required on stop banks for flood protection without having to come to all the councils and get consent for everything that they need to do. The designations are almost an overarching approval as long as what's been undertaken in them is in accordance with the purpose.
Thank you, Tom. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm late. It took a while to connect through.
It's got one comment more than anything. So when you look at all these consent applications here, they're all rural subdivisions. There's 40 of a bit of a count up. There's another 41 rural lots there that could at some stage have a house or be habited. So you know, we're getting to a stage where and the concerns of yesterday were being brought up about roading and the ability for all these subdivisions to be actually catered for properly. So I just like to say that that the new, with a bit of luck, the new combined district plan should or will address some of these problems. But
Maybe
at this
maybe we
stage,
should look at changing the differential, do you think?
yeah, at this stage, we're stuck with it. So yeah.
Any further discussion? We have one recommendation, and that is we received the report. Move that. We have a second. Thank you, Councillor Terry Campbell. All in favour?
Aye.
Thanks. Carried.
Okay.
Thanks, Sol. Welcome, Johannes. Item 6.3, made projects update.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. I'll take the report as read, and then just want to highlight a few things. So very excited that the Taverner Street sewer renewal has been completed successfully. That went down without a hitch. We were very happy with the work that GNC Diggers together with Aegis has done there. Also very excited for the Water Main project to have started. Recently we've had many leaks on High Street, and every time we have a lateral, have to do maintenance on a lateral, it's quite a process with traffic management and everything. And by systematically removing all those laterals from the corridor or from the active lanes, we'll reduce our operational burdens in the future. So I'm very happy with the fact that this has started. Ideally we would have liked to renew the main at the same time, but just the extent of what that would cost fell with our approved budget. So we decided we'll do the right main this year so that we can have the reduced operational burden, and then the next step will be to focus on the main. And then the idea in the long-term plan is also to get all of the laterals out of High Street in the coming years. So that's going well. I've mentioned in the report as well the High Street sewer renewal. That would be our next piece. We've got 3 different options of how we can go about skinning that cat. Obviously, there's a significant price difference in the different options. So we've invested in condition assessment so that we can, with the hope that we could go for the lining option would then see us saving $420,000 by doing that. So that's what good asset data gives us. We have the ability to make better decisions, make sure that we invest our budgets where it's most needed in the most appropriate way. Then also very excited to say that we're practically complete with the pump station at Dalefield. I've just spoke to the team this morning, so we're planning to run the pumps in the next few days to empty tank 2. So again, fantastic that we're meeting our targets, staying within our budgets, and delivering high quality projects. Then also another very cool thing. There's a lot of good things happening in the project space. So tenders is closed for the the climate change mitigation solar project. We've had 2 really good submissions from local suppliers. Again, very excited about that. The team's busy with the evaluation, and we should be able to make a decision within the next 2 weeks. Romanga Roads is, we're apart from business as usual. We're a big part of what's currently happening is the negotiation for the potential rollover of the contract next year, June. And that's also going well. So we will make a recommendation to the chief executive, hopefully within the next week or 2, so that we can get that all done and dusted. And then the other exciting project on the way is the Manuka trials. So there's the 3 different studies on the way, and we've got the 10,000 trees planted in our irrigation area. And this is also, again, an opportunity that within the next 2.5 years, we would know whether that is actually an opportunity for Karratini in the future for a significant revenue stream. So this the outcome of this trial could be significant, very, very special for our community.
In terms of selling the
So
plants,
so in terms of so what that would indicate is whether the actual Manuka plant is compromised in any shape or form. So then there's all of the different industries that comes from that plant, whether it's honey, whether it's oils. There's so much that come out of that. But also in the future of what we do with treated effluent and Manuka, maybe it is to propagate and sell trees, but I think that is a further piece down the road of if we then can use this, how is the best way we can use this, or the most what would have the biggest benefit for our community. And this trial has not only the opportunity for environmental benefit, but actually financial benefit to council as well.
So if there's no residual contamination, if the tests show that the Manuka filters,
Yep.
and then that opens the door for using that plant for pretty much anything.
Yes.
Interesting.
So obviously you have to invest the time to get to that outcome. But once you know that, I mean, it could be fantastic for us. And then with that, I will open over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Johannes. Questions? Councillor Gallon.
I've just got out where you've got minor defects for the pumping station. Right? Is that the liner inside the tank?
So the minor defects is not with the pump station. It's on the actual tanks, and it is things like a rusted bolt and a missing nut. Or so minor things, part of the defects liability period. So most normally throughout any construction project, you would identify defects. That's just part of the process, and within the defects liability period, the contractor comes and repairs it. So we're just following that process, but a lot of it you can't detect before commissioning the pump station. So that's why it's coming up.
Not a broken gate.
No, I'd just seen a picture of the liner inside the tank originally. And I thought, a bit like the ponds where there could be a
defect in the line,
and a crease in the liner or something that we could structure or something, you know? I thought maybe that was what they're talking about.
No, nothing like that.
So I have a question. Just, you mentioned about the water main on High Street being a priority.
Yes.
And underneath that, you talked about the traffic management being around 40% of that cost. You also mentioned underneath the sewer renewal. So within those costings, what are we looking at for the traffic management within the costings for the renewal of that sewer main on High Street? Because you don't really have that listed there, or is it inclusive?
So the traffic management is inclusive, and that's of that sum, and that is part of the reason why the liner is a more economical option, because you don't have to trench. So trenching is very dependent on weather. It's also takes more time. So yeah, it is included in there. So you still have to close the median of the road. You still have to overpump. There's still a lot of things that happens under traffic management, but your duration on the road is much less than, for instance, when you trench.
So just thinking about that and what we've been mentioned in the past, that this was going to be tried to be worked on with Whakakotahi and work they were doing on State Highway 2. Do they front up with any?
So where we have the benefit in working with them is that we trying to get the right words for this, but our reinstatement is not to the level of what you would expect for a final surface reinstatement. So, for instance, if we were the final step of if there was nothing else happening, then we would have been expected to reinstate a pavement of highway quality with a 60mm asphalt on top. We don't have to do that. We can go down to 40mm and also a lower type of asphalt. So we have the benefits there. Where we can align, we would. The challenge is we can't really share traffic management, because what they will do is much shorter than we will do, and it'll just become a safety issue and quite a congestive issue if you start closing that whole section and do everything at once. So we are working together and finding efficiencies, but it's not necessarily that they can contribute to our activity, because it's still our asset.
Disappointed if Brian didn't have a question.
Sorry?
I'd be disappointed if Brian didn't have a question.
Oh, well, I've been waiting.
Grace had her hand up twice.
Oh,
She's waiting.
Sorry, Grace, I was looking for the yellow hand on the screen.
Virtual.
That's all right. I can wait for Brian. No worries.
okay. Thanks, Grace. Yeah, one thing that has concerned me for 2 or 3 years now is the cost of traffic management. And as we're seeing that it is a large proportion of most projects, the cost of it. Have we ever done a feasibility study ourselves to set up our own traffic management operation? And is it feasible that we do that? I'm just wondering whether we shouldn't be looking at doing this, because it's going to be ongoing. And I know the initial cost would be high, but over a period of 5 or 10 years.
I think a step back, just in terms of traffic management, whether we have an in-house traffic management team or outside, a team such as that is going to be an expensive team in the current market. Traffic management has become quite and not a niche, but a specialized industry, with the new it's not new anymore. The regulations now calls for trained and experienced people on the roads. So we don't have the workload that would justify a compliant team to work on state highways. Our operations team can do setups can do reasonable level of setups, and we do a lot of our in-house traffic management. But to have a dedicated team that could do all of it would be quite a. It would require a number of very expensive FTEs. And then the other challenge in the market is that there's a very small resource pool to the whole market, and council would be competing with the likes of Fulton Hogan and Traffic Assist and Precise Traffic. So we would be a council competing with the private sector for the same type of resources. So I don't think it would be, even if we go and do a full feasibility study, I'd be surprised if it works in our favour.
But also,
Thank you.
even if it was in-house, we'd be charging the job for that service. So it would be our name on the invoice, but it would be a similar invoice.
Yeah, the cost would be the same. You would have the same vehicles, and the reality is a traffic management planner. If we want to get a quality traffic management planner, we need to be willing to pay what the private sector is paying. Meaning that cost will be missed. We won't have the profit. We won't be paying for the profit part, but we'd have the annual leave, the sick leave, everything in between, quite a significant number of FTEs. So
where it might be feasible if it was like the three councils, for example, or like it was a CCO or a shared service amongst others, to get that level of work possibly through like Ruamahanga roads, or
it could be done, yes, something CCO that did as a traffic management department would be it could definitely be done, but as long as there's an understanding that we're competing with the private sector for that stuff.
But with accountability too, if something went wrong, probably Jeff would go to jail.
We
The health and safety, we would be taking on a greater health and safety burden, because not only would we be trenching ourselves in the road corridor, but we would also be responsible for overseeing the work that we are doing and providing the traffic management for that work. So we would significantly be increasing our liability, but our council's liability.
they get a cake with a filer.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. My question was just about the Manuka trial. You mentioned, Johannes, that there's ongoing conversations with Ngāti Kahungunu, and I was just wondering if you could fill us in a bit more on that. Is there hesitation around the use of the Manuka for essential oils?
So Rasmith has been part of the trial since the beginning, or the inception of the trial, and I think he was one of the drivers. I wasn't part of the initial. He's
the driver behind the Manuka trial project. I think it's probably the opposite, Councillor Ayling. Ra's very keen to see if particularly this type of Manuka, swamp Manuka, has greater potential for, because traditionally his view is this was traditionally used as a plant for wastewater purposes. So he's very keen to see whether or not the Mātauranga Māori view of the world is supported by the scientific view of the world and the research that comes out from this trial. So he's very supportive of the research to see whether or not those two things actually show the same result. Man, I'm very excited about that too.
Awesome, thank you.
Just a comment really. You started off by talking about GNC diggers and the Taverner Street particularly project. Not sure what Councillor Terry Campbell thinks, but obviously I was going through those roadworks regularly, and I thought they were outstanding with their traffic management. You know, given that Taverner is a rat run for locals and non-locals, I felt that they went out of their way to ensure that the traffic moved while they got the work done. And I think some other large-scale traffic projects not too far from here could learn a bit about how you actually manage traffic control and kept the traffic, the motoring public on site while the work was getting done. I thought they were exceptional in what they were doing.
Thank you, and I'll pass on the compliment.
Would you?
Oh, 100%. They were absolutely polite. They always had smiles on their face. There was never a queue. There was never a problem. One day I parked my car on the other side of the road just so I didn't annoy them coming in and out. And they put little traffic cones around my car for the safety. They didn't know I was a councillor. And sort of, yeah, they're just the standard of work that GNC did was just outstanding. The team from the traffic management to the workers that were doing it, they're just best quality I've ever seen, to be really honest.
Thank you. Particularly the intersection with Lincoln and Taverner and Belvedere. I mean, in a normal course of events, that's a challenge for locals to navigate. But it actually
Made it easier.
They had 4 people on, and it was a work of art. They were actually improving the flow of that intersection while the work was getting done. So I thought that was quite outstanding.
And they weren't sort of sitting there twiddling their thumbs on their phones. They were watching the whole time. It was,
Yeah, they only needed half the cones as well.
yes.
Well, I guess my point is, if that's what we can expect through the longevity of the contract, it's a great deal for Carterton.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Agree.
Any further comments? I just want to make a comment about the Manuka trial and agree with everyone's sentiments that it's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results out of it. There was a bit of pushback at one of our wastewater governance group meetings, I think it was, the
Advisory group.
The advisory group, yeah, how they, some iwi were not happy about wastewater being put on any native plantings, but I think, as Raz pointed out, this scientifically, this shows that it's, I think it'll be fantastic. So, especially looking to the future of our irrigation onto more land. So,
all you need to do is hold your breath for 2 years and we'll know.
Well, the interesting thing is if it's proven to be not negative for Manuka, then does that extend to other natives, to other species, to, who knows? If they the potential is extraordinary.
So is there some concern or around honey things that might be in the honey that wouldn't otherwise be?
So typically we know, for instance, in the pasture that there's pathogen uptake in it. So that's why the silage from the irrigation area can't be used for dairy cattle. So, but the idea is that Manuka can deal with the pathogens without taking it up or without it going into the oil or then the flowers, and then it wouldn't impact. So that's the whole purpose of the trial, to see if it can deal with the effluent.
Perhaps I could. So these honey is an interesting question. So the irrigation of wastewater onto the plant and the soil will see the plant transform wastewater into vegetation. And so that's the first process. We're keen to understand whether or not that transformation from wastewater into foliage, vegetation, woody vegetation, removes pathogens from the wastewater. And then the second potential process is transformation of that vegetation into, say, an oil product, which is a distillation process. So again, you've got a second transformation process to determine whether or not that product that comes out the end has any other contaminants in it. Now, the difference with honey and flowers in particular is you end up with the wastewater being irrigated directly onto the flower, and then the pollen is picked up by the bee. So there's fewer transformation processes that the plant will go through in order to obtain honey from a manuka. So at this stage, I wouldn't say that a honey derivative is a primary outcome for us, because there is a bit of a question there. The primary outcome is whether or not the foliage has transformed the wastewater into vegetation with no remaining contaminants. But yeah, honey, I think, may have I can't immediately see us getting a food grade product from something that has had wastewater directly irrigated onto the flower.
I know it's a completely different process, but I'm thinking about two, which comes through sometimes into honey and kills people.
It could be a way around it by doing under tree irrigation.
Yeah, so it could,
We just do trickle line and that kind of thing. Absolutely, we could get a way around it, so you wouldn't end up with irrigation directly onto the flower. We need to monitor that, but
early stages, but a lot of potential.
So. Oh, not
Our resident expert.
sorry, it's quite possible that
no,
a PhD student in the room knows more than us.
I'm just thinking about studies that I read around. So in Canada, for example, they irrigate wastewater onto cropland. So where they grow fruits and veggies and that. But there's a period where you can't irrigate for a year before you harvest. And so potentially if there's some sort of cool down period, maybe if that would change, maybe some sort of honey outcomes, but no, everything. Jeff and Johanna can say.
Cool. Okay.
Things
Thank
we
you,
learn, eh?
great report, and I think what you've written on the Manuka, I hope the community has a good read of it.
So just want to clarify, I don't write everything in the report. It's my report, but I draw on my team to provide the information. So most of the content, depending on which project comes from the project team. In this case, Sky gave the content of the Manuka piece. I do a little bit of tweaking on the side.
It sounds like a disclaimer.
No,
Promotion,
no, I can't take credit for other people's work. Just wanted to make that very clear.
It's a bit of a sideline to the climate space, Sky.
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic.
Well, that's the other thing. If it turns out that no oil is an opportunity, then it's a potential opportunity for carbon sequestration.
Fantastic, true. Thank you, Johannes, and your team.
Thank you.
We have one recommendation, and that's we received the report. Councillor Gallen and seconded by Councillor Lawrence. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay. If
That makes tax deductible.
Karakia Whakamutunga, who would like to? Anyone like to do that?
I've got one.
I've got one as well, if you want me to.
Councillor Cherry Campbell.
Hold the line for me just a second. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki a ihu karaiti. Me te aroha o te atua, te whiwhina tahitanga, ki te wairoa tapu, aki. Amen.
Amen. Cool.
Thank you, Grace.
Thanks all.